Ancient civilizations and their contributions in science and technology. Before we start to enumerate and discuss the contributions of each civilization, let us first identify the six ancient civilizations, which is the Sumerian, Babylonian, Roman, Egyptian, Indian, and Chinese civilization. Sumerian civilization. The Sumerians were the first people to migrate to Mesopotamia. They created a great civilization. Beginning around 5,500 years ago, the Sumerians built cities along the rivers in lower Mesopotamia, specialized, cooperated, and made many advances in technology. Sumerians invented or improved a wide range of technology. Sumerians who first explored the practice of the scientific hypothesis, engaged technological innovations, and created the written word, developed the mathematics such as arithmetic and geometry, astronomy and astrology, and even fashioned the concept of time itself. Some of the most important inventions of the Sumerians are wheel, cuneiform, irrigation, saws, plow, sandals, maps, harpoons, and beer. Wheel. The wheel was invented in the 4th millennium BC in Lower Mesopotamia, where the Sumerian people inserted rotating axles into solid discs of wood. It was only in 2000 BC that the discs began to be hollowed out to make a lighter wheel. The Sumerian used the wheel to carry heavy loads over long distances. The wheel was also used for chariots for battle. The wheel helped them get into battle quicker and faster. Cuneiform. Cuneiform writing was used to record a variety of information such as temple activities, business, and trade. Cuneiform was also used to write stories, myths, and personal letters. Beer. The people who live in the land between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers considered beer a very important part of their diet. They called it the divine drink because of its intoxicating effect. The first solid proof of beer productions come from the period of the Sumerians around 4000 BCE. Time and clock. It was the Sumerians of Mesopotamia as early as about 2000 BC who first felt the need to track time using a real device. Before this, people used astronomy, their knowledge of the planets and stars, to figure out the approximate time. Next is Babylonian civilization. Babylonian was a state in ancient Mesopotamia. The city of Babylon, whose ruins are located in present-day Iraq, was founded more than 4,000 years ago as a small port town of Euphrates River. It grew into one of the largest cities of the ancient world under the rule of Hammurabi. Can you imagine a world without a wheel? No wheels would mean no cars, trains, or airplanes, and no machines or industry. In the absence of the wheel, the world would come to a standstill. We can thank the Babylonians for discovering like the wheel, the chariot, and the sailboat, as well as the development of the first known map, which was engraved on the clay tablets. So let us take a look at the significant Babylonian discoveries. The first map. The map is sometimes taken as a serious example of ancient geography, but although the places are shown in their approximately correct positions, the real purpose of the map is to explain the Babylonian view of the mythological world. The sailboat. Since Babylonia was located in between two famous rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, the importance of traveling by water was soon recognized. The Babylonians invented the first sailboat with basic structure and framework. The primitive plow. The plow is an essential agricultural tool which is used to turn the soil. The invention of the plow was a revolutionary agrarian development first discovered by the Babylonians. This early plow was called the ard. It was made of wood and was not very effective on the grass. The invention of the plow brought about great societal changes in the hunter-gatherer groups of Babylonia, enabling them to stay in one place and rely on agriculture instead of hunting. The study of mathematics. Mathematics has always been a part of human life, and the Babylonians developed many advanced mathematical theories which are still in use today. As the Babylonian civilization flourished and began to trade, an accurate counting system was necessary to measure the value of goods exchanged. The Babylonians created the concept of counting and number system. The art and architecture. Babylonian artifacts can be found in many museums today, right? The Babylonians built gigantic stone structures which resemble huge towers and were known as ziggurats. The Babylonians were prolific artists, and even the most mundane household objects were beautifully decorated with images of human or animal forms. Roman civilization. Ancient Rome was the center of one of the largest and most powerful empires in history, with its center in today is Italy. The Roman Empire conquered the whole Mediterranean region and spread its influence to the Middle East, Northern Africa, Western and Central Europe. It reached the height of its power between 100 and 200 AD. So let's go to the contributions of Roman civilization in science and technology. The concrete. For their aspirations above ground, the Romans also invented hydraulic concrete. The Roman invention of concrete was introduced as an inexpensive building material in the 2nd century BCE. Romans began using it in monumental architecture such as the Pantheon's replacement roof. Once it was set, dried and hardened, this concrete was virtually unbreakable. Roman concrete is most known for its amazing durability. The calendar. That's right. Without the Romans, you wouldn't even know what month it was, let alone day. Well, maybe you would, but they'd be called something different, and there might be less of them. The Julian calendar, introduced by Julius Caesar in 46 BC, was a reform of the Roman calendar taking effect shortly after the Roman conquest of Egypt. The public Roman calendars were the fasti, which designated the religious and legal character of each month and days. The Romans marked each day of such calendars with the letters. Roman numerals. Roman numerals originated in ancient Rome but survived for some uses after the end of Roman Empire. The numbers in the system are represented by combinations of letters from the Latin alphabet. Some practical examples can be seen at the entrances to the Roman Colosseum, which are labeled with Roman numerals. Starting in the 14th century, Roman numerals began to be replaced by Arabic numerals, which benefited from the use of the zero, making them much more useful for arithmetic and counting. Still, Roman numerals are still seen today, most often on clock faces or representing years on architecture. The hand abacus. The hand abacus was invented by the Romans to be a hand-calculating device for both engineers and businessmen. This was the first portable calculating device. The abacus was basically a modern plate consisting of several beads then wrought in slots. The upper slots contained one bead while the lower slots held four, with the exemption of the two rightmost columns marked as 0 and -3. The aqueducts. Romans built aqueducts to bring fresh water in neighboring sources into their growing cities and towns. While earlier civilizations in Egypt and India also used aqueducts, the Romans greatly improved on the structure. The whole process needed no external energy, as it was achieved by the use of gravity alone. The aqueducts were connected to a large water holding area, which would then distribute the water to public baths, fountains, farms, and more. What may seem easy to accomplish today was a remarkable feat of engineering as early as 312 BC. So next is the Egyptian civilization. Ancient Egypt is the one of the greatest and most powerful civilizations in the history of the world. It lasted for over 3,000 years from 3150 BC to 30 BC. The ancient Egypt was a civilization in Northeast Africa located along the Nile River. The Nile River was the source of much of ancient Egypt's wealth. The contributions of Egyptian civilization in science and technology. The corbelled arch is a construction method that uses the architectural technique of corbelling to span a space or void in a structure. It's also used to support the superstructure of a building's roof. The pyramid. The pyramid is one of the most magnificent man-made structures in history. These were built as tombs for the pharaohs and their queens. Mummification. The preservation of the bodies of the dead that after thousands of years we know of the diseases they suffered such as tuberculosis of the bone, gout, tooth decay, bladder stones, and gallstones. The paper or papyrus. Cyprus papyrus was a plant that grew abundantly along the Nile River in Egypt. Paper was a major accomplishment in Egyptian record keeping and communications. Ink. The ink was used to record history, culture, and codified laws. Next is the Indian civilization. This era of the early agricultural period in the 20th century BC. This period saw a marked development of agriculture and hunting. The regions created the first Indian civilization called the Indus or Harappan. Let's move forward to the contributions of Indian civilization in science and technology. Satellites. India has built satellites and sent probes to the moon and Mars, established nuclear power stations, acquired nuclear weapon capability, and demonstrated firepower in the form of a range of missiles. The heliocentric theory. Mathematicians of ancient India often applied their mathematical knowledge to make rose book. Aryabhata represented the pinnacle of astronomical knowledge as it revolves around the sun. He made predictions about the solar and lunar eclipses, duration of the day, as well as the distance between the Earth and the Moon. Plumbing. Standardized earthen plumbing pipes with the broad flanks making use of asphalt for preventing leakages appeared in the urban settlements of the Indus Valley Civilization by 2700 BC. Stupa. A stupa or literally heap or a pile. It is a shrine containing the remains of holy or sainted person. It is associated with them originating in India prior to the 5th century BCE as tombs of holy men and evolving afterwards into sacred sites dedicated to Buddha. And lastly, the Chinese civilization. Ancient China was the one of the most amazing civilizations in history. In the 5th century BCE, it was made up of several rival kingdoms. These were conquered by the king of the state of Qin, who became the first emperor in 221 BCE. The Chinese people became unified as one kingdom, which lasted for about 2,000 years. The contributions of Chinese civilization in science and technology. Chinese scientists were the first to observe the sunspots. They researched the magnetic phenomena but also calculated. Also the silk. The silk was made of cocoons of silkworms. Silk was a soft and light material much desired by the wealthy throughout the world. It became such a valuable export that the trade route running from the Europe to China. Magnetic compass. The Chinese invented the magnetic compass to help determine the correct direction. They used this in city planning at first, but it became very important to map makers and for the navigation of ships. The gunpowder. Gunpowder was invented in the 9th century by chemists trying to find the elixir of immortality. Not long after, engineers figured out how to use gunpowder for military uses such as bombs, guns, mines, and even rockets. Some fun facts about contributions of Chinese civilization in science and technology. Gunpowder, paper, printing, and the compass are sometimes called the four great inventions of ancient China. The Grand Canal in China is the longest man-made canal or river in the world. It is over 1,100 miles long and stretches to Beijing to Hangzhou.